They say blood is thicker than water. I used to believe that, until the night my sister live-streamed my private engagement and called it her own. For 34 years, I paid for her tuition, her rent, even her birthday parties. I gave everything, and they took more. Behind every I love you was a quiet transaction I didn't see. Until the hospital, until the will, until I found out that love in my family was just currency in disguise. You won't believe what they tried to steal next. But this time, I wasn't staying silent. This time I had a plan. I still remember that day when we were 9 and 10. Tina and I walking home under a broken umbrella, soaked to the skin and shivering with laughter. Our mom had forgotten to pick us up again. Tina held my hand and said, "We'll always protect each other, right?" I looked at her, her cheeks red from the cold, and nodded. I believed it like a vow. It was us against the world, but the world changes. Or maybe it stays the same, and we just start seeing the cracks. Even as adults, I kept my side of the promise. I paid Tina's college tuition when she didn't get financial aid. I covered her rent the first 3 years after graduation because, according to her, the job market's brutal. I vouched for her at the agency where I worked, even when her resume was more holes than substance. I never asked for repayment, only gratitude. And even that I didn't demand. Mom always had a way of reinforcing my role. "You're the strong one, Haley. Tina needs you. You've always been the responsible one." Inti, it sounded like praise, but it was really a life sentence. Every time I hesitated, guilt slid in like a whisper. If you don't help her, who will? I believed them. I really did, even when I didn't want to. One Sunday dinner, the kind we used to have once a month before life got too busy, or maybe before I started to feel like a guest in my own family, I was spooning roasted vegetables onto Tina's plate when she said, casually, "Oh, remember that elective I took junior year? I had to pay full price for it because the scholarship didn't cover non-major credits." I froze. She'd always told me her scholarship covered everything. That was why she needed help with rent and books, because she wasn't getting any money for living expenses. But now she was saying something different. My fork hung in midair. She didn't seem to notice. I didn't say anything, but I didn't forget either. A week later, while checking my own accounts, I glanced at a small side savings account I had once linked to help Tina manage her budgeting. We hadn't used it in years, or so I thought, but there were 3 withdrawals last month, one at a nail salon, another at a boutique hotel, and the largest, nearly $600 from a jewelry store. I blinked. I texted Tina, "Hey, did you use the old Capital One account recently?" She replied, "Oh God, yeah, I thought it was mine. Must have logged in by mistake. I'll transfer it back." She never did. When I brought it up again, she said, "Ugh, maybe it's a glitch. Banks are so weird lately. Want me to call them?" Then she changed the subject. I asked Mom about it. She sighed. "You always think the worst, Haley. You've got to stop being so paranoid. If we can't trust each other in this family, what do we have?" I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled and nodded and tried to push it out of my head. That night, I sat in my apartment, alone with a box of old photos. I found one of me at age 7, holding Tina's hand in front of our first apartment. I was grinning like I had the world. My fingers trembled as I traced the image. "Family is everything," Mom had said once. "If you don't have your family, you're just a body walking around." Was that supposed to be comforting, or was it a warning? I don't know how long I sat there. The silence was thick, too thick. I finally opened my phone to scroll through anything that would drown out the spinning in my head. And that's when I saw it. A message, not to me. But somehow it had popped up. Maybe Tina hadn't logged out of her iCloud on my device after borrowing it last week. I shouldn't have read it. I did anyway. Mom, let her think she's helping you. She always needs to feel important. When the time comes, we handle her. My blood ran cold. Not thank her, not appreciate her, not even include her. Handle her. Like I was a problem, like I was a tool. I stared at the screen until it blurred. That night, I didn't sleep. I wasn't angry, not yet. I wasn't even hurt. I was numb. Like that moment after a crash when your brain hasn't caught up with your body, and all you can hear is silence. Deafening, hollow silence. And under that silence, something else began to stir. Something cold, something steady. Not revenge, not yet. But the first flicker of wakefulness, I'd spent weeks planning it. Something small, quiet, just for us. Ryan had no idea I was going to propose. He thought we were going to a vineyard for our anniversary. I'd booked a private table in a sunlit courtyard with the soft hum of acoustic music and roses lining the fence. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. It was ours. Tina had insisted on coming along, just to help set things up. I hesitated, but she smiled, said, "I'll stay far away. Just want to see your face when you do it." I relented. The moment came. I stood up, hands trembling, heart pounding. Ryan looked at me, confused. I laughed nervously and dropped to one knee. And that's when I saw it, the phone angled just right, held discreetly behind a glass of wine at a nearby table. She was live streaming. "Say yes, say yes," Tina's voice squealed in the background. The video exploded online within hours. The comments were relentless. "Why is this girl copying Tina's proposal style? This feels staged. OMG, didn't Tina do the exact same thing last month on her vlog?" She hadn't, but she'd said she had, on a podcast. Claimed she'd always dreamed of proposing first. Showed mock-up pictures of a vineyard setting. Now everyone thought I was the copycat. I sat in my dark apartment that night, still wearing the now wrinkled white dress I'd chosen for the moment. The ring box sat unopened on the table. I hadn't even gotten the chance to give it to him. Ryan had smiled, nodded, said yes, but the magic had been stolen. I hadn't even realized it until the notifications started flooding in. I ripped the dress at the waist. Threads tore like tendons. My breathing went shallow. I couldn't stop hearing Mom's voice. "A woman without a husband is just leftover soup. No one wants cold soup." A ping broke the silence. A message from an unknown number. "You really think Tina didn't plan that?" I stared at it, then another. "She wanted to trend again. You were just the setup." I didn't sleep. Again. 3 days later, Dad had a stroke, collapsed during his morning jog. I rushed to the hospital, heart in my throat, barely able to speak, when I saw him lying motionless, tubes tangled around his chest. He looked so small, like a man already halfway gone. Tina wasn't there. Mom was. She hugged me, too tightly, and whispered, "He's stable. You can go rest. I'll handle things with the lawyer." Lawyer? I wasn't supposed to hear. But as I stepped into the hallway for air, I passed the edge of the family waiting room, just enough to catch a voice. "Make sure the version she signed last month is destroyed. The older one splits everything 50-50. Mom again. "I don't want Haley getting involved. She'll make noise." The lawyer murmured something I couldn't hear. Mom said, louder this time, "Just do it. Tina will take care of us. Haley's too difficult." My stomach twisted. So this was it. Not just betrayal, not just lies, but actual erasure. Rewrite history, cut me out, and make it seem like I never existed. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat beside Dad's bed and held his hand. "You'd never do this," I whispered. "You'd never shut me out." His eyelids fluttered. Maybe he heard me. Maybe not. When I got home, Mom was already there, letting herself in with the spare key. She acted like nothing had happened, made tea, chatted about the hospital food, then asked if I'd seen Tina's new Instagram post. How elegant she looked in white. I lost it. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. She looked up, brows arched. "Doing what?" "Lying, cutting me out, making me the villain." Her voice dropped an octave. "You think life's fair? You think everyone gets what they deserve just because they work hard? Grow up, Haley." I took a step closer. "If I died tomorrow," I asked, "would that make things easier for you?" She didn't even flinch. "If you keep digging into things that aren't your business," she said calmly, "then maybe it would." I disappeared. No note, no explanation. I stopped answering calls, texts, emails, even from Ryan. The family thought I'd cracked. Mom told her book club I was finally getting therapy. Tina posted a selfie captioned, "Healing is a journey," with a soft smile and filtered sunlight behind her. She wore the same necklace I'd given her the year she failed out of school and told me it was a glitch in the system. Let them think I was unraveling. What I was really doing was building. I started with the email. Tina had once borrowed my laptop and logged into her school account. Stupidly, she never logged out. I hired a digital forensics expert named Natalie, young, sharp, utterly unshocked by betrayal. In a cafe far from home, we sat side by side as she pulled months of archived data, drafts, attachments. She scrolled without flinching. "Here," she said, "an application form, a withdrawal request, a bank statement." Tina had transferred over $15,000 from the education account I created for her into a crypto wallet under her name. "She's been trading for over a year," Natalie said, flipping through screens. "Not very well either, lost nearly half." My stomach knotted. That money was supposed to cover her tuition, her books, her rent. All those nights I ate cereal for dinner so she wouldn't have to stress. I felt the loss like a bruise spreading across my chest, but I didn't say a word. Next came the financial review. I brought in a lawyer, Mitchell Lynn, referred by a former colleague. He was quiet but ruthless. By the third day, he'd flagged 6 transactions, 3 falsified signatures, and 1 questionable property transfer. "She's clever," he said, "but not careful." We sat in his office, surrounded by files and USB drives. Mitchell leaned forward. "I know this isn't easy," he said, "but if you want to pursue this, you'll need stamina." "I'm not trying to destroy her," I said, voice cracking. I just want it to stop." He nodded, but his eyes told me he knew better. I booked a therapy session. It was the first one I didn't cancel. I sat across from Dr. Rowan, a woman with warm eyes and the calm energy of a mountain lake. I lasted 12 minutes before the tears came. I didn't sob, I just broke. "I don't want revenge," I whispered. "I'm not trying to win. I just want to feel like I can sit in my own life and not be afraid someone's going to take it from me." She leaned in. "And what would that life look like?" I closed my eyes. "Quiet," I said. Safe. Silence settled in the room, heavy and needed. The next day, Mitchell called. "We need to meet," he said. "There's something you should see, and if I were you, I'd prepare myself. The biggest shock hasn't happened yet." 3 hours later, I was on a bus headed north to find a ghost. His name was Richard, my former stepfather, Mom's second husband, brief, forgettable until now. He opened the door with a limp and a cough and stared at me like I'd stepped out of a photo he'd long since burned. "You're Haley," he said. "Yes, you look like her. June." "June?" He stepped aside. We sat on his porch as the sun sank behind rows of trees. He lit a cigarette and said, "She never told you, huh?" "No. Your mother had a sister, June, older by 2 years, smart, brilliant, actually. They were close once, but then things changed." I waited. "June got pregnant at 16. Your mother blamed her for embarrassing the family. Instead of supporting her, she sent her away. Faked a scholarship, bought a ticket, and told everyone June went abroad to study music." He exhaled. "June never came back." "Where is she now?" "Last I heard, Oregon still writes, under a fake name." The ground beneath me shifted. I spent the next 2 days tracking down a bookstore that sold self-published memoirs. One had a dedication to the sister who taught me what silence costs. A week later, I found June. She lived in a coastal town, taught poetry workshops at a community college, and looked at me like I was the echo of a life she tried to forget. "I knew she'd send someone," she said. "She didn't," I said. "I came on my own." She offered me tea. I sat. The kettle screamed between us. "She did the same thing to me," June said finally. "Only I didn't fight back. I ran." She showed me letters, ones she'd written but never sent. Ones Mom had intercepted, rewritten, or burned. "She manipulates by roles," June explained. "You're either the savior, the problem, or the threat. You were the savior until you grew teeth." I looked at her, blinking back tears. "Why didn't you come back?" I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because she told me if I ever spoke to anyone in the family again, she'd make sure I'd regret it for the rest of my life." The invitation came on cream cardstock, embossed in gold. "Tina and Connor, a celebration of love." Below, in delicate cursive, "We'd be honored to have you, Haley, our anchor, our family." I stared at it, then flipped it over, as if the truth might be hiding on the back. I already knew what was coming. Tina was live streaming the whole thing, sponsored by a bridal brand, covered by a lifestyle blog. She wasn't marrying for love, she was marrying for the algorithm. Still, I RSVP'd yes. The night of the engagement party, I wore black, not out of protest, just out of honesty. I didn't feel like a sister, I felt like a ghost. The venue was extravagant. Chandeliers, champagne towers, white roses everywhere. I slipped through the crowd unnoticed, like a shadow, until Tina spotted me and squealed for effect. "My sister's here. Everyone, this is Haley. She raised me." I smiled, nodded, and let her bask in the borrowed glow. Then I stepped out onto the balcony with a glass of wine. The city lights blinked below. The music inside thudded like a countdown. I looked at the glass in my hand and whispered, "It's time." The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Tina took the mic, beaming. Before dinner, I wanted to share a short video about love, about family, about the people who made me who I am. The screen lit up. Only it wasn't her video, it was mine. First, a screen recording of bank transfers. Tina's name, my account. Then, emails she thought she'd deleted, talking about how she planned to use me as a launch pad. Then audio, her voice. She's so desperate to be loved, she'll give you anything. Just pretend to cry a little. Gasps. Then the letters, copies of the forged document naming her sole inheritor. Then a clip of my ex-boyfriend, Daniel, from 5 years ago, recorded with his permission. She said she was Haley, he said. Told me she'd take care of the abortion, but I had to cut ties with Haley afterward. Said it was best for her career. I'd confronted him months ago. He'd thought I already knew. The screen went black. Silence swallowed the room. Tina stood frozen, mouth open, clutching the mic like a lifeline. A moment later, Connor, her fiancé, stepped forward. He didn't yell, he didn't demand. He simply took off the engagement ring, placed it on the table, and said, "You lied about everything." Tina's voice cracked. "It wasn't my fault. She set me up." But he was already walking away. The room buzzed like a hive, phones came out, whispers turned to questions. I walked back inside, handed my wine to a waiter, and left. No words, just truth. Controlled chaos erupted over the next 72 hours. Mom called, then texted, then emailed. "What did you do? How could you? We're family." Then a new message. "I didn't know it would go this far. I thought she was just venting. I didn't know she would actually hurt you." I didn't respond. I'd already spoken to the press. Quietly, off record, with timelines and documentation. I didn't want revenge. I wanted prevention. I wanted no other daughter to sit in therapy, wondering if she was crazy when all she was betrayed. An anonymous YouTube account posted a side-by-side breakdown. What Tina said versus what Tina did. It went viral. 2 million views in 3 days. Comments flooded in. She weaponized her sister's love. This is narcissism in high definition. She deserves everything coming to her. The brand deals Tina once flaunted began to disappear. The wedding sponsor pulled out. Even her followers, her beloved audience, started turning. In a hotel room downtown, I sat on the carpet, back against the bed, and cried. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't gaslit, guilted, or silenced. I was simply free. The tears weren't sadness. They were release. They were mine. As I wiped my face, my laptop pinged. A new email. Subject: "You don't know me, but I know you." I opened it. "Haley, I'm your cousin, from Mom's side. We haven't met. I was sent away when I was young. But I've followed your story. I just want you to know you're not alone. I was a victim too. She did it to me, and to someone else before me. I'm here if you want to talk." I read it twice, then 3 times. Somewhere, beyond the noise and the pain, the silence was cracking. And for once, it was letting light in. The subpoena came on a rainy Thursday. Slipped under my apartment door, tucked inside a plain envelope. It wasn't dramatic. It was clinical, procedural. But my hands still trembled as I opened it. The state had launched an investigation into fraudulent inheritance transfers, specifically tied to my mother, Eleanor Grace. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at her name in black ink. It looked foreign, like someone I'd once known, but now couldn't place. She wasn't just my mother anymore. She was a defendant. The fallout was fast. Tina lost her influencer contracts within a week. One by one, brands issued statements. "We stand for integrity. We take ethics seriously. We've severed all ties with Ms. Grace." The smile she'd weaponized for years disappeared from every feed. But the real blow came from a hidden source. Mitchell, my lawyer, Received an anonymous tip. A video, grainy, black and white, time-stamped 3 years ago. Security footage from my father's private caregiver's office. It showed my mother placing 2 unlabeled pill bottles into Dad's tea, then sitting next to him, hand on his shoulder, whispering something. The audio was faint, but we enhanced it. "You'll be fine," she said. "Just sign the new papers, darling. It's just a formality." He looked dazed, confused, frail. She guided the pen into his hand. I watched the footage in silence, my chest tight. I couldn't cry. I couldn't breathe. I could only watch. She drugged him. She manipulated a dying man to rewrite his legacy. And all for what? Control? Ego? Favoritism? No, for power, plain and cruel. When the footage was submitted, the case shifted. What started as a financial investigation became a potential criminal prosecution. She was arrested on a Tuesday morning. I didn't attend the arraignment. I sat on a park bench across from the courthouse, watching the steps. When she emerged in handcuffs, flanked by officers, she still wore pearls, still kept her chin high. But I saw it, the twitch at the corner of her mouth, the flicker in her eyes. She wasn't untouchable anymore. Someone from the crowd shouted, "You deserve this." I didn't join in. I just stood, still. And for the first time in my life, she looked at me without speaking. No accusations, no dismissals, just recognition. She finally saw me, not as the daughter she could use, but as the woman who ended her reign. She was taken away. Tina vanished from public life. No posts, no statements. A silence more powerful than any apology. But the world didn't go quiet. Justice for Haley started trending that night. Not from me, from strangers, survivors, people who saw their own families in mine. Thousands shared their stories. Manipulation, betrayal, financial abuse, cloaked in birthday dinners and Mother's Day cards. It was overwhelming, but it was beautiful too. The tide had turned, and this time it wasn't crashing down on me, it was lifting others. CNN called, then NPR, then a TEDx curator from San Francisco. They didn't want gossip, they wanted insight. They wanted to understand how this could happen inside a family that looked so perfect on paper. I hesitated for weeks. Then I agreed. I stood under the stage lights, palms slick, heart hammering. "I'm not here to tell you to cut off your mother," I began. "I'm here to ask, what is love without safety? What is loyalty without boundaries?" Silence, then applause. More messages, more survivors. One woman flew from Ohio to meet me. Another sent me a handwritten letter saying she'd left her abusive aunt after reading my story. It was working, not just the revenge, not just the justice, the healing. Still, something lingered. A weight I hadn't named. I drove out to the cemetery just after dawn. No press, no camera, just me and the birds. Dad's grave was modest, the headstone clean, simple. I sat on the grass and placed a cup of black tea beside him. "Hey," I whispered, "it's over." The wind stirred. I did what I had to do. Not just for me, for you, for all the silences you swallowed, for every time you looked the other way, hoping love would fix what truth refused to ignore. I pressed my palm to the stone. "You don't have to protect us anymore. I've got it now." The tears came, slow, cleansing. I let them fall. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. Mitchell again. "I just received something you'll want to see," he said. A scanned document. A fax, oddly enough. It was from a production company. Subject, film rights inquiry. They wanted to buy the rights to my story. A full adaptation, limited series, streaming platform already attached. I stared at the screen, the pixels swimming slightly through leftover tears. "Do you want to talk terms?" Mitchell asked. I looked back toward the grave and smiled. The air smelled different here. The ocean wasn't far, just enough to scent the mornings with salt and possibility. I'd moved into a small cottage at the edge of a coastal town few people had heard of, and fewer chose to stay in. That was exactly why I picked it. There were no delivery drones buzzing overhead, no morning traffic, just the chirp of gulls and the hum of a pottery wheel in my garage-turned studio. I'd learned to shape clay with patience. At first, I pushed too hard, imposing form, forcing results. The clay cracked, collapsed, refused me. Then I learned to let it respond, to feel it push back. That's when the vases started holding their shape. Some days I spoke to no one but the clay. It was enough. I still got invites. Tina sent a long, rambling email once. No apology, just updates, like nothing had happened. Mom, even from prison, found a way to send a birthday card. "Families fight," she'd scrawled, "but blood is blood." I didn't respond. When an invitation to the annual family brunch came, hosted now by a distant aunt trying to patch things up, I folded it in half and placed it gently in the recycling bin. I didn't feel anger, not anymore, just clarity. That was the difference. I hadn't built walls. I'd drawn lines, clean, visible, and firm. I chose who stepped over them. One afternoon, during a local arts festival, I was helping set up a booth for my pottery pieces. Simple things, mugs, bowls, a few sculptures shaped like open hands, when a woman approached. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun, eyes rimmed with red. She held my book. The cover was worn, pages dog-eared. "The family I had to leave to love myself. I read your story every night," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm still in it, but your words remind me I'm not crazy." I didn't say anything at first, just reached out and squeezed her hand. "You're not," I said. We sat on a bench and talked for almost an hour, not about trauma, about freedom, about gardens, about coffee brands, about music, the life beyond the pain. She left with a piece of pottery, a small bowl with the words, "You belong to yourself," etched inside. I never saw her again, but I carried her with me. The book caught fire faster than I expected. What began as a self-published memoir turned into a national bestseller. Reviewers called it searing, graceful, a mirror to the invisible scars of family loyalty. I just called it truth. With the royalties, I launched a nonprofit, the Ember Project, named for the belief that even in ashes, something glows. We offered legal referrals, therapy scholarships, safe housing for those fleeing emotional or financial abuse inside their own homes. People assumed most of our clients would be teenagers. They weren't. They were women, men, professionals, mothers, people with degrees and families of their own, who still couldn't name the thing they'd survived until they saw it reflected in someone else. One day, a girl came into the center, 14, quiet, barely spoke above a murmur. Her mother called her useless. Her teachers called her gifted. She was tired. She didn't say it, but I saw it. She had the same look I once did. I sat with her, just us, in the garden behind the center. "There's nothing wrong with you," I said. She stared at the ground. "You just grew up in a room where love was conditional. That doesn't mean you were hard to love. It means they never learned how to love without control." Her eyes flicked up. For the first time, she nodded. It wasn't a breakthrough, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall. And light finds cracks. The days became quieter again, more centered. Even success didn't feel like noise anymore. It felt like space. I took walks every evening, barefoot on the cool sand. The sunsets here didn't shout, they whispered, gold bleeding into lavender, a sky that didn't need to be earned. One evening, as I turned to head home, I heard a crunch behind me. Footsteps, but no fear, just someone passing through. I looked back toward the horizon. The light stretched long, soft. I thought about the girl, about my father, about the silence I'd mistaken for safety, and the noise I now recognized as truth. And for the first time in a very, very long while, I smiled, not to survive, but because I could.